Hi, thank you for joining me, Emily, on Temple Not Made by Hands. Today, I want to talk to you about cycles, about breaking cycles and patterns over your life. And the reading comes from Judges 6 as we look at the life of Gideon. So it says that they were turned over to the enemy and that the people of Midian and the Amorites and the people of the east would come over to harass and impoverish the children of God. And I just wonder, are the children of God today feeling impoverished? Are we feeling like we have heard of all the miracles of God? We have heard of a great God, but we haven't seen any proof of that. As a matter of fact, that's what Gideon said when the Lord confronted him. And he said, yes, I've heard of the God of my fathers, but if God is real, why has all this happened to us? And I think a lot of us are asking the same questions, and we have and carry the name child of God, but we serve the spirit of fear. And that's what was happening here. And this caused them to work hard, to work harder, and every year, year after year, to work harder and harder. And here's how you know when you're trapped in a cycle. Here's how you know when you are stuck in a stronghold. And it's when you keep doing the same thing year after year, only to watch the enemy carry it away. So here's what happened in Judges 6, it says that every time they would sow, Judges 6, 3. So it was, whenever Israel had sown, Midianites would come up, also Amalekites, and the people of the east would come up against them. Then they would encamp against them and destroy the produce of the earth as far as Gaza, and leave no sustenance for Israel, neither sheep, nor ox, nor donkey. Okay, the enemy doesn't care if you work hard. He's going to let you work hard. He attacks those that carry the name of God and are intentionally sowing, but have left their self wide open because they're actually serving a spirit of fear. Because when they did finally get to the end of themselves and cry out, and they wanted to know, why is this happening? Lord, we're seeking your face. The Lord sent a prophet, and he said, because you feared. And then I want you to watch the generational impact. That fear came in after a generation crossed over. They saw all the miracles of God. They took hold of a territory, but they made compromise. There was a snare of an incomplete conquest. So if you read that in Joshua 1, when they go in to take the land, they made alliances with the enemies they were comfortable with, introducing compromise. So they were the generation that introduced compromise, making the second generation live in compromise. And then by the third generation, it says they did not know the Lord. And that's a picture of where we're sitting right now in Judges 6, a generation that does not know the Lord because they worshipped at the altar of fear. They tried to do things in their own strength and their own striving. And fear is a normal response. And if we take that fear to the Lord, it will be transformed into faith with actionable steps that we can take to demolish strongholds. But if we try to fix it ourselves, year after year, it will leave us impoverished, just like it did them. I heard about God, but I have never seen a miracle of God. If God is real, why is all of this happening? So I believe the answer is the same today. He is waiting for a generation that will take him at his word, and that they will rise up in faith. This is the time for the church to arise, but we have to confront the things at home first. So year after year, they were sowing. If you're going to sow a seed, you have to till the ground. So that takes work. You have to sow the seed. You have to patiently wait. And that's what they were doing year after year. And I can just see it right as it starts to sprout. They're watching it. And then when they expect to bring in the harvest, that is when the enemy comes in. It says they encamped around. And right when the produce came, they carried it away. I believe Satan has sent monitoring spirits to watch the lives of those that call themselves Christians to see when they're left wide open or not. And if we don't take our fear to the Lord, then it will be transferred to the next generation. Whatever is not transformed will be transferred double. And that's what happened here. And then, as you notice, when they did get to the end of themselves, that they cried out to the Lord, and the Lord sent them a prophet. So get this picture. This is a whole nation of people that are working and working harder and working harder and working harder. When they get to the end of themselves, they cry out and God sends them a prophet. But God spoke directly to Gideon. Why did God speak to Gideon and not everybody else? And I want to submit to you that it is because Gideon respected and protected the seed. He didn't understand what was going on in the house of God, but he was not doing what everybody else was doing. As they were working hard, it also says in verse 2 that they made dens, caves, and strongholds for themselves. So that means they showed up for work every day. They worked really, really hard, but then they were hiding their emotion into the things that they could control and feel. So if you think about a den, that's an activity, something that you plan or create, a den in the house. It's something, a space you created to do something intentional. Is not bad, not all in itself. But if you're doing things to avoid dealing with heart issues, then it's a problem. And I believe some of us have made our schedule so jammed, packed, that the Lord cannot breathe into those schedules. And we're avoiding dealing with the heart issues and we're replacing that with activities. Then the second group of people, it says they made caves. A cave is eroded rock when water keeps hitting it and it erodes until it finally leaves an opening that you can hide in. And I think this is a picture of depression. Those that are functionally showing up for work, but they have no idea what to do, and they're crawling into their holes in depression and overwhelmed with despair. And I believe this is a pattern. When our activities don't work, we slide into the next phase of depression. If we don't turn to the Lord in our depression, then we're going to go into the next phase of a stronghold. A stronghold is a wall and a barrier that we set up in efforts to protect ourselves. And we're trying to protect ourselves from the enemy. But the problem is when we have made them ourselves, it blocks out everybody, even God. So if we have made the wrong things our stronghold, the wrong thinking, the wrong patterns, and we keep replaying it into our minds, then we have developed a stronghold. That's where this nation was. They made dens, caves, and strongholds for themselves that was not God. And the enemy walked away with their harvest every time. Gideon was hiding in the winepress so that something could bear fruit. So even though that's not the practical place for anything to grow, he was producing more fruit in the winepress than a whole nation of people that were willing to work hard. And the Lord showed up and met him in the winepress to draw something out that would change his generation first, but then also equip him to lead an army. And what God told me in this season is stop worrying so hard about leading an army and make sure you are in it. God is not going to call you from a den, a cave, or a stronghold to go serve as a leader in any army. He's going to call you out of the winepress when you respect and protect the seed and you're willing to take it to your family first. And Gideon's first assignment was start at home. Tear down the altars at home. What have you been worshiping? And what has been taking the place of God in your life? Start at home. And Gideon did it. He started at home and he tore down the altars, and the Lord strengthened him and picked and supplied his army. It was not an army that he would have to strive for. But the Lord said, you go do what I told you to do, and I'll meet you there. And then I'm going to give you eyes to see. And then God gave him his strategy. Those that are putting their head in the water, tell them to leave. Those that are fearful, tell them to leave. And then the remaining army, that's your army. That's your army. So the first group of people that he sent home was the fearful, because that's why they're in this situation in the first place. Fear. Fear opens the door to compromise, and the enemy will leave you devoured and impoverished if you continue to feed the spirit of fear. The first group that got sent home, fearful. The second was the unprepared. Those that were putting their head in the water were not ready for any kind of call to go anyways. If they had a but first I need to do this, but first I need to do that, they're not equipped. Go home. Go home. But those that were going down, cupping their water up with their eyes, looking around. Everybody needed a drink. We all get thirsty. We all need to feed ourselves. But if we are engrossed in that and we can't see what's going on and we're not ready at the call when he calls, then we are not fit. What is our but first? But first, Lord, what do you want me to do? If we're eating and drinking, it should be with our eyes up, ready for him to call. And that was the ones that he said, that's your army. That is the ones who's been preparing. So he didn't have to sift through it. He just had to have eyes to see who his army was. And he had eyes to see, and then ears to hear. And as he allowed God to form his army, he was ready to go. And as they stood in the position that they were called to, God fought their battles. This battle is not ours, it is the Lord's. When we get dressed and prepared for battle and stay in our position that he assigned, we will see the salvation of the Lord. He turned the enemy's hand against themselves. And so what happened is, as the enemies were coming in against them, all of a sudden, a spirit of confusion hit them and they started to attack each other. So it is, I believe, today. There is only one agenda we need to be concerned about. And any agenda that is not from the Lord is going to be self-destructive by nature. And they will defeat each other. We don't have to get caught up in the right or the left. But let's stay in the army of the Lord with eyes to see and ears to hear what the Spirit of the Lord is doing. And then as we move in that, he will show you who your team is. Do what the Lord said, and you will see the salvation of the Lord for your family first, but then to your greater calling. Start at home. And that is my word, and my concluding word that I think is an urgent word for today. And don't worry so much about leading an army. Make sure you are in it. That's an urgent word for today. Make sure you're in it. So be blessed. I hope this encourages you, and I can't wait to see you next time.